The House has resumed. Members, the House is debating the Sustainable Biofuel Bill, and the House rose for the dinner adjournment. Louise Upston had the call. She has 6 minutes remaining, should she wish to take the call. If not, is there some other member seeking the call? Andrew Little.
Mr Speaker, it's a pleasure to be standing and speaking in support of the Sustainable Biofuel Bill, and it's disappointing that irrespective of the time that this bill has had to take to go through to get to this point, that it lacks the support of the government. And what is most disappointing is just how visionless and lacking in foresight the speeches from the government members has been this afternoon and tonight. Because the thing is this, as somebody who comes from the capital of fossil fuels and oil and gas in Taranaki, and has worked closely with many of the workers who work in that industry and understanding the importance of that industry to our economy today, the truth is that our economy, like the world economy, is in transition. We are because we have to, moving from the oil-dominant, fossil fuel-dominant world to a world where our sources of energy are going to have to be renewable. What this bill offered, or still offers, if there is any chance of a change of heart, is not only the chance of a source of energy, of biofuels, but a biofuels market that is sustainable, that is durable, that has a long term. And I don't think there's anybody that looks at this bill and the circumstances that we're in at the moment and thinks that it is perfect or that the solution that it offers up is perfect. But it is a start, and it's a very important start, or some might say a continuation actually, of work that the previous Labor government had started to help us with that transition. And what is so disappointing is when you hear the speeches that say, this won't make a difference, we will just stick with what we've got, we don't have to do anything, because we cannot continue to put our heads in the sand. We have to look out not 5 years, but 15, 20, 30 years plus, because that's going to be the future that those generations who come after us have to face. And we are failing in our responsibilities as today's leaders, community leaders, if we are not looking forward and confronting those challenges and preparing the way for the next generation to actually come up with some meaningful solutions. And this bill, addressing one of the most severe challenges of the modern world and the modern economy, which is about the future sources of fuels, is absolutely critical. We are moving from the old economy, we are moving to the new economy. There are those who say, listen, we will never run out of oil. And it is probably true to say, almost certainly true to say, that there are plenty of oil deposits around the world. But the truth is they are getting harder and harder to exploit. And the measure that is most important is the return on energy invested. That the energy taken to exploit existing or predicted or projected fossil fuel sources is going to be greater and greater, so that the real return is less. What promoting and encouraging a market for biofuels does is starts to provide us with the alternative, starts to establish that market, starts to create an environment in which investment is encouraged and promoted and ultimately incentivised. And that is the role of government. It's governments that can use its power and its resources and its knowledge and its information to look ahead multiple generations, to look ahead in the long term, in a way that business, certainly big business, has been proven to be so incapable of doing. The business might be very good at looking at investment opportunities that will generate a return in the short term, but they are notoriously bad at looking at the extraordinary long-term investment horizons. And the government must play that role. And when it comes to sources of energy, and when it comes to sources of fuel, then the government has a critical role to play in that. Labor started a very good program with its biofuels program and supporting the biofuels industry. It started played a role of starting and creating the opportunity to establish that market. And this government, so tragically and regrettably, shortly after it was elected, took urgency to essentially scuttle that market. The prospect of investment in a new plant in the Bay of Plenty, a 60 million litre plant, biodiesel plant, gone, because this government lacks the foresight and the vision to understand what those challenges are going to be in 20 or 30 years' time. We need to support that industry. And as I say, this may not be the perfect solution, but it is a start. And it is a start to getting that investment in place and a start to creating the industry and the jobs of the future, because that is fundamental too. Who wants in 30 years' time, when the next generation of leaders, young leaders and community leaders now, are grappling with the issue of sustainable sources of fuel, and looks back and says, listen, they had that opportunity. They had that opportunity that the Labor government took in its last term, that was abandoned by this government. The opportunity that this House has in 2012 to meet that challenge, they look back on that in 30 years' time and say, they had that opportunity and they've let us down. Well, that's not a result that I particularly relish living with. And if we are responsible, and if we are forward-thinking, then we will accept that actually this bill offers something very important to the future of New Zealand. So I celebrate and I acknowledge the great work of those who have started this legislation, the Jeanette Fitzsimons, the Green Party members, the Labor members who have sat on the Select Committee, heard the submissions, including from the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, who raised issues of practicality, not issues of principle. I acknowledge and celebrate the work of those people and say, at the very least, let us respect that and let us look seriously at the measures that this bill puts up, which is about encouraging a step towards the future, a future that is going to get harder and harder if we fail to grapple with these problems. We need to be honest with those who are in the fossil fuels exploitation industry today. Not only to those who are making the investments, who are looking for a return straight away and a return ongoing for many years, but those who are working in the industry, to start saying we need to make this change. And it's legislation like this that paves the way, that assists us, that meets that important challenge for the future. So we need to support, take whatever steps we can to support the emerging biofuel industry. The real impact of the abdication that this government has taken in relation to this industry and the abandonment of its support for it and of refusing to pass this legislation is that it misses the opportunity for a whole new area of investment that is so crucial to this country and to its future. We could be world leaders. We could be world leaders. In the Bay of Plenty, who has a representative in this House, could be a leader. What does Simon Bridges? The rising star of the National Party, who has more at stake in this legislation than just about anyone, but he is willing to sit with his colleagues to abandon it. That is the shame of it. That is the disappointment of it. And it is so disappointing, and we will look back on this moment, and Mr Bridges will look back on this moment in some years hence, and he will kick himself. He will possibly do even more than that and say he should have done more. And the challenge of him is whether he will stare in the face those who will be let down by this, those who will be deprived, who will be shortchanged by our failure to pass this legislation, whether he will stand and look at them in the face and say, I could have done better, I should have done better. It's not too late. It's not too late for the members on that side of the House to say, this is worthwhile. It's a drop in the ocean, but it's a start as we pave our way to a fossil fuel less dominant world, which is so important.
Very good speech.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Noes have it. A party vote will be called for. Quiet, please.
New Zealand National.
59 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party.
13 in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes opposed.
Māori Party.
3 votes in favour.
Mana.
1 vote in favour.
Act New Zealand.
1 vote opposed.
United Future.
1 vote opposed.
Any other votes?
The ayes are 51, the noes are 69. The question is not agreed to. Members, before we move on to Members' Order of the Day number 4, I have to report that after the reading of the Military Manoeuvres Act repeal bill, the vote was declared as 101 in favour and 8 opposed. This was incorrect. Accordingly, the votes that were cast should have made the result 111 votes in favour and 8 opposed, and the record will be corrected. Point of order.
I wanted to check, Mr Speaker, is that the same changes Mr Acting Speaker Robertson read out, or is this a second change to it?
Let me respond.
Has it been corrected?
Well, if it has, that's fine, but in regard to the final result, it will be 111 for, 8 opposed, and the record will show that. I was unaware that it had been corrected. We will now move to Members' Order of the Day number 4.
Crown Minerals Protection.